Well, from everyday experience, it seems that when I, for example, drink alcohol or even more potent drugs, consume more potent drugs, there's a very small amount of a physical substance that very dramatically can change my mind. I lose control over my movements. I might feel less constrained psychologically, dare more, or I might even have hallucinations, see things that are not actually there. And those are all mental states induced by by a physical substance. But it also seems to be happening the other way around, so that imagining a certain threatening thing that might happen tomorrow or in the future, and I feel a bodily reaction. I shiver and I sweat, and the blood pressure goes up, the heart rate goes up, because I'm thinking about those threatening things. So here the relationship is the other way around, something mental, which is not clearly in space, like a thought, of which I cannot say that the thought is like 2 meters long, or located left or behind another thought, or in front of another thought, spatially speaking. So this mental realm influences the physical realm, so that my heart rate or blood pressure goes up. How can this be explained? Well, there's basically 3 alternatives here, 3 routes we might go. The most natural one is a form of dualism, saying that, well, there is a mental realm and there's a physical realm, and they actually interact. That's our common sense worldview. And sometimes the physical has an effect on the mental, and sometimes the mental an effect on the physical. The problem with this is then the physical realm doesn't seem to be causally closed, or it cannot be causally closed, so that for every physical event there is a clear and complete physical cause. Because if for every physical event there is a complete physical explanation, the mental has nothing to do. There's nothing left to do for the mental. So there have to be openings, something that's not physically determined at the lower level, and so the mental can make a difference. And for some philosophers, that is a very, or that thought that the physical is really not causally closed seems to undermine natural science and the autonomy of the natural sciences, and so that's something they would rather stay away from. And the alternative is then a very elegant one, but not without its own problems, to assume that in reality, even though we describe the mental and the physical in different vocabularies, they are in reality the same. So my thought, my wish that I want to go to the fridge and get a beer, and that seems to be moving my body to the fridge, there's not something mental somehow interacting with my body and moving it to the fridge. That very thought or that wish of wanting to go to the fridge to get a beer is identical to a brain state. And it's this brain state that moves my body. So if 2 things are identical, the brain state and the wish, they cannot compete for causal relevance. 2 things that are identical have exactly the same causal role. So there really is no interaction between the mental and the physical. There is no interactive dualism. There's only a monism because they are really the same. The trouble with this position is that they don't seem to be the same. Mental events have very different properties than physical events. As I said before, mental events are not clearly located in space. Mental events are associated with consciousness and phenomenal feeling, how it feels like to be in pain. And we don't see how something which is entirely physical has those inner states. Mental events have aboutness. We think about a certain mathematical truth. And physical states don't have this kind of aboutness. So the mental and the physical seem to be just too different to be simply identified. And that's why some radical materialists have proposed that we should give up the idea of mental causation altogether, that the mind does something in the world. There is no mind that does something. That's a mere illusion. There's only the physical world, and it's all doing all the work. But why, could we ask, do we then have this illusion that there is a mind that moves my body? Because that's a mental state. This illusion itself is a mental state. Why do we have it? Well, then the common answer is, well, it gives us an evolutionary advantage to have this illusion, even though it's false. But if this illusion gives us an evolutionary advantage, it has a causal role. It makes a causal difference. Because those who don't have this illusion are not as fit for survival as those who do have that illusion. So the illusion makes a causal difference. But the very idea is that nothing mental does make a causal difference. So we have no explanation why we even have this illusion of that our mind makes a difference. And so we might come back to the initial assumption that our mind really does make a difference, and then look at whether science tells us that this could not possibly be. And it seems to me that it's not what science tells us. At least since quantum mechanics, we know that there is not for any physical event a complete physical explanation. Some physical events, according to some interpretations of quantum mechanics, most common interpretations, standard interpretations, some physical events have no physical explanation. And there is this opening there in the physical world to make room for some mental influence. But that mental influence cannot be construed like physical influences, like an interaction, weak force, strong force, gravity, electromagnetic force. It has to be something altogether different. And that's a deep philosophical puzzle. What kind of influence could that be so that it doesn't undermine the unity and autonomy of physics?